The instant I saw him grab her arm and shove her against the mailbox, something cold went through me, then hot. Screams cut the air. Karen stood behind the man with that same greedy grin like she'd hired muscle in order to show. "She's causing trouble," the big guy lied, pushing my daughter harder. Neighbors froze. Someone reached for a phone. My daughter's face went white, her backpack ripped, and for a second, the world narrowed to that one terrible moment. I moved faster than I ever told anyone I could, but I didn't run because I wanted them to see every step. "Get your hands off her," I said low, and they laughed, thinking I was bluffing. The leader sneered, "This is HOA business now. Take him away." That's when I stopped letting them decide the story. My voice changed, calm but sharp, and I said something that made their laughter die. "You do that, and you'll be dealing with what I taught the rest of this county." Heads turned. The muscle hesitated. Karen's smile faltered. She had planned intimidation, not a reckoning. My daughter stumbled back into my arms, terrified, and I held her tight while the men glanced at one another, unsure. I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. Just showed a little proof I wasn't bluffing, and it was enough to put a crack in their courage. "You hurt my family," I said, "and you picked the wrong man." The air felt like it was about to break. I moved like I'd practiced 1,000 times, but I kept my voice steady so everyone could hear. "Hands off her," I said. My daughter was shaking, but she managed to hold my gaze. The big man laughed and pushed again. This time I stepped forward and caught his wrist, gentle enough that it didn't look like a fight, hard enough that his smile dropped. "You don't know who you're messing with," I said, and then I let something else do the talking. I tapped my phone and played a clip. My daughter's little smartwatch had recorded the whole thing. You could hear the shove, the grunt, the man saying, "Make her shut up," and then Karen's voice, calm and cold, giving orders from the edge of the crowd. The audio hit like a punch. Faces went white, the muscle froze, fingers still closed around nothing. People started whispering, "She told him to do it." A woman held up her phone and started streaming live. The video was already going viral on the block. That's when I stopped pretending to be mild. I moved in one smooth motion and put the man on the ground without breaking a bone. No theatrics, no yelling, just control. He stared up, stunned, like he hadn't expected anyone to stop him. I didn't raise my voice. I only said, "You hurt a kid. You answer for that." Neighbors circled, some cheering, some filming, but no one tried to pull him back to his feet. The lesson landed hard. This wasn't a show. It was a line that could no longer be crossed. While he lay there trying to argue, I told someone to call 911. I pulled the man's jacket open and found a folded envelope with Karen's name on it and cash peeking out. My fingers shook a little, not from anger, but because the puzzle pieces were clicking into place. The man swore he'd been hired, and he named Karen. That was twist 1. The assault wasn't random, it was ordered. Then came twist 2, bigger than cash. The man's phone buzzed with a text from Karen, but before he could hide it, I thumbed through and found messages planning the whole thing. Dates, who would make noise, how to distract neighbors. She had written, "Make them scared. Make him look bad." The words were there, plain as daylight. Karen's face went from red hot to drained. For the first time, she looked like someone who'd been caught plotting. I didn't celebrate. I pulled my daughter close and said quietly, "You did good." Then I turned back to Karen and to the growing crowd. "This ends tonight," I told them. My voice was calm, but the line in it left no doubt. People started chanting for the police. Phones were everywhere. Somewhere down the block, a neighbor shouted that the stream already had thousands of views. Karen lunged toward the man, screaming, but no one moved to help her. Her authority had been stripped in one recorded minute. Just as the first patrol car rounded the corner, my old trainer's number popped up on my phone. He'd seen the live and was on his way. Karen's eyes locked on my screen for a heartbeat and then went wide. I smiled low. "You thought you could scare my family into silence. You forgot one thing. I don't walk away." Blue lights washed over the street as the real police arrived, painting Karen's perfect hair in flashes of red and white. She tried to straighten her blazer, but her hand shook too much. The enforcer on the ground started mumbling something about just following orders, and 2 officers pulled him up, cuffing him before he could spin another lie. Karen turned to the officer in charge, a young woman with the kind of presence that silenced a crowd, and started her act. "This man attacked my security team. He's dangerous. He's lying about everything." But the officer didn't even look at me. She already had her phone out. "We've seen the live stream," she said flatly. "You ordered this assault." The neighbors gasped. Karen's mouth opened, but the sound died when the cop turned her screen toward her. The chat feed was flying, hundreds of comments, thousands of viewers, everyone watching her meltdown in real time. "You can't use that," she snapped, desperation leaking through every word. I finally spoke, calm and even. "You invaded mine when your man laid hands on my kid." The officer's jaw tightened. "Sir, we'll handle this." She nodded toward me like she knew I'd been on the other side of a badge once. Karen's mask cracked completely then. "You don't understand. He's military. He's trained. He could have killed him." The officer's voice was cool. "But he didn't. You paid someone to hurt a child." Someone in the crowd shouted, "She's been doing this for years." Another added, "She fines people for breathing wrong." The tide had turned completely. The enforcer looked down, refusing to meet her eyes. Karen tried one last bluff, waving her fake HOA paperwork. "The board will back me," she said. But I just raised a brow. "There is no board," I said quietly. "Not anymore." And then, right on cue, another car pulled up. The county investigator stepped out, an old friend from my Navy days, now working with the state attorney's office. He gave me a small nod before turning to Karen. "We've been watching your transactions for months," he said. "It looks like today you finally gave us enough." Karen's face drained of color. The officer behind her reached for her wrists. The sound of the cuffs locking was the only thing anyone heard for a few seconds. My daughter clung to my side. I bent and whispered, "It's over now." She looked up at me and asked softly, "Did she think she could win?" I smiled just a little. "Some people mistake power for ownership, but this country doesn't work like that." The crowd started to clap. It wasn't loud, just steady. Justice had finally caught up. Karen's scream echoed down the street as they guided her toward the patrol car. "You can't do this to me! I run this neighborhood!" she shouted, fighting against the cuffs like the laws of the country somehow didn't apply to her. But the officers didn't even look back. The more she struggled, the more the truth spilled out. "They're nothing without me! I built this community!" The investigator turned to me quietly. "We found her accounts," he said. "She's been funneling HOA money into personal property deals. Whole thing's a racket." I nodded slowly, not surprised. "She built her empire on fear," I said. "It was bound to collapse." Neighbors began to talk all at once, stories spilling out like broken glass. One man admitted she'd threatened to tow his car for being too old. A woman said she'd been fined for leaving her blinds open. Another whispered that Karen had taken cash payments to forgive fake violations. And now every one of them had a phone pointed her way, recording the end of her rule. Karen kept shouting from the back of the cruiser, "You'll regret this! You don't know who you're dealing with!" But then she froze when the investigator leaned in and said, "Actually, ma'am, we do. We've been tracking your transactions for months. You moved HOA funds offshore under your maiden name." The street went dead quiet. Her face went blank. No screams now, just the sound of a woman realizing the walls had finally closed in. I turned to the crowd. "She thought owning a clipboard made her the law," I said. "Now she gets to meet the real one." The officer gave me a nod before driving her away, the sirens fading into the night. My daughter squeezed my hand. "Dad, are we safe now?" I knelt beside her and smiled softly. "Safe," I said, "and free." She hugged me tight, and for the first time in months, the block didn't feel like a battlefield. People began tearing down her rules signs, one by one. It was like watching the neighborhood breathe again. Then, just as things quieted, my phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. It read,
She wasn't working alone. I looked up at the investigator, then back at my daughter, feeling that old instinct stirring again. Peace never lasted long, and if Karen had allies still hiding in the shadows, this fight wasn't over yet. That night, after the sirens faded and the neighbors finally drifted home, I sat on the porch with the message still glowing on my phone. She wasn't working alone. I read it twice, then again because something about the phrasing felt deliberate, too clean, too calm. My instincts started humming. I hadn't felt that edge in years, not since deployments where silence meant danger. I called my friend at the county office, the same one who'd helped put Karen in cuffs. I asked, "You sent that message?" He sighed. "No," he said, slowly, "but I was going to. You should know this. Karen wasn't the top of the ladder. She was collecting for someone else." My jaw tightened. "Who?" He hesitated. "Name comes up as a man called Davenport. Used to sit on the HOA's board before it was dissolved. We'd been trying to find him, but every time we close in, records vanish. Property transfers, shell accounts, all under names that lead nowhere." I stared at the dark street, the storm-damaged trees still creaking in the wind. Davenport. The name sat heavy in my mind. My daughter opened the door softly, wrapped in her blanket. "Can we sleep now?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, sweetheart. Go inside. I'll lock up." She went in, but I didn't move, because right then, headlights appeared at the end of the road. Too slow, too deliberate. The car stopped across the street where Karen's old mailbox still leaned sideways. The driver didn't get out, just watched. I stood, walked to the edge of the yard, and the car rolled its window down halfway. A man's voice drifted out, calm and low. "You made a mistake taking her down. Some things are bigger than your little family feud." I didn't answer. The man chuckled quietly, then said, "You're a soldier, right? You should know. Every operation has a chain of command." The window rolled up, and the car eased away into the dark. I exhaled slowly, the weight of the message in that voice pressing into the night. I looked back at my house, my daughter's shadow crossing the window, and felt that cold focus return, the one I'd spent years trying to bury. If Karen was the face of the corruption, Davenport was the hand behind it, and I'd just become his next problem. Just before dawn, I woke to the sound of tires on gravel. Not panic, precision. Someone had parked just far enough down the street to stay hidden. Years of training do that to you. Even half asleep, your brain starts reading sound like Morse code. I checked on my daughter, still asleep, and slipped outside, quiet as breath. The air was thick, mist curling around the mailboxes. A black sedan idled near the corner, same one from last night. This time, the driver's door opened. He stepped out slow, wearing a gray suit that didn't fit the neighborhood, too clean for a street still recovering from a hurricane. His voice carried easily. "Mr. Taylor, you really should have taken my call." I didn't answer. He smiled thinly, eyes cold. "Karen was useful, but unlike her, I prefer order over chaos." I gestured toward my house, "and I can't have a man like you undoing everything we've built." "Built," you said. "The scams?" No, no, no. Control. That's what keeps people from tearing each other apart. A strong hand, a clear hierarchy. You, of all people, should understand chain of command." He was calm, rehearsed, the type who'd let others get their hands dirty. "You sent the message," I said. He smiled. "Consider it a warning. Sell the property, disappear, and we'll forget you exist." I took a slow step closer. "And if I don't?" His tone never changed. Then accidents happen, houses burn, storms return. For a moment, everything went still. The same silence before the breach, before the flash. I met his eyes and said softly, "You don't scare easy. You'll learn that soon." He gave a small, amused nod, slid back into the car, and rolled away, leaving a small envelope on the edge of my porch. Inside were photos, grainy, zoomed shots of me and my daughter walking to school, eating dinner, sitting on the porch. They'd been watching for weeks. I felt the familiar weight of anger settle low in my chest, but it wasn't wild. It was clean, cold, focused. I turned toward the door, locked eyes with my reflection in the glass, and muttered to myself, "You wanted a war, Davenport? Fine. But I don't lose wars."